is,
So is that the bubble one?
yeah, absolutely. This is called a bubble humidifier. You use these a ton. This is disposable. This one is non-disposable. So a lot of patients use oxygen at home, and they would have the one that's non-disposable because it doesn't make sense to keep buying all of these. You can clean this with mild soap and water or a mild vinegar solution and air dry. I think the top shelf of the dishwasher supposedly. I don't know. But you're going to use this a lot in the hospital. There is only one piece of equipment that hooks to this. I know this is a tough day for you. Anyone know what this is? Nasal cannula. So we're not testing you on O2 therapy yet. We will cover that after this checkoff. But what I need you to know is that for the bubble humidifier, the only safe piece of equipment to use with it ever is a nasal cannula. This runs from 1 to 6 liters per minute, the nasal cannula does. So what's the maximum flow that should be going through this? 6 liters per minute, make sense? Okay. The bubble humidifier, so when you get it, this is gonna be off of it for this disposal one. All right, you're gonna have a couple tabs on here that you have to break off. This is actually gonna contain sterile water. We had to empty out for obvious reasons because it'll get contaminated, it'll spill everywhere. So this goes on, okay? This right here at the top is what's gonna hook onto your disc connection of your flow meter. Do you remember the disc connection?
Diameter.
In safety system. Excellent. So this is gonna hook up to the flow meter, okay? This right here, this nipple adapter, is where the end of your nasal cannula tubing is gonna hook, but there's something that we have to do beforehand to make sure that this will alarm in the presence of back pressure. Do you remember back pressure? We talked about it some with tanks and regulators. You know, maybe if a patient wheels partially over this, or they close their tubing up in the bed rail, or they're laying on it, or they're biting it. I mean, who knows? The sky's the limit. All right. So this is going to go onto your flow meter. A lot of times the hardest thing is threading it, honestly.
I agree with you.
And this one.
Because sometimes the plastic doesn't quite line up and it can be a stinker.
There we go.
And I want you guys to know that 14 years later, I remember that I didn't do this thing in my checkoff with Professor Nolan. 14 years later, it is seared into my mind that I didn't do this one thing right here. So please don't miss it. You'll remember in 14 years.
All right, so you gotta set your flow rate. We'll say the doctor's order was 5 liters per minute, okay?
I know, I was like, I think the other one's not that good.
So this right here, we have to do something first to make sure that we can hear. This has a built-in alarm that will let us know if for whatever reason there is back pressure from the patient. Maybe this got a little kink in it. Again, maybe it got close in the bed rail. Maybe the patient's lying on it, what have you, okay? And the way that we test that is we simply occlude the nipple adapter. Did you hear that? That is called the pop-off valve. Okay? So before you put the oxygen equipment onto the bubble humidifier, what do we have to check? And what are we checking? The actual pop-off valve. You want to make sure that you hear that noise when you occlude it. Ready? So I'm going to occlude the flow right here at the nipple adapter. And that sound, you'll get very accustomed to it, alerts you that something is wrong and that there's an occlusion or back pressure created through the nasal cannula. Okay, so we have to go in and fix it. bubble humidifier provides about 30% relative humidity. Okay? See, this is filled with sterile water to the fill line. So the flow comes in, it comes down the back, it bubbles down and then bubbles up, and then the gas goes to your patient. So the gas comes in, it bubbles down through the sterile water, it bubbles back up through the sterile water, and is delivered to your patient. So is there a lot of time in contact? Is that a ton of time that the gas is in contact? No, it's very brief, right? Is there a lot of surface area like grids or any additional surface area in here that is coming in contact with to increase the relative humidity? No, it's just the water. It goes down and comes back up, right? Are we adding any heat to the system?
No.
Are we? No. And you cannot add heat to this. So hence, why the relative humidity of a bubble humidifier is so low. 30% is not very high. However, it can make a ton of difference for a patient who is having bleeding or bloody noses, right? Does anyone remember the medical term for that? There you go, epistaxis, okay? So with the bubble humidifier, we always add this to a 4 liter per minute nasal cannula or higher. So 4 to 6 liters per minute, automatic. No one is gonna tell you to do that, but it's gonna cause your patient a lot of discomfort with their nose, okay? And bleeding and dryness and sores and rock hard boogers. I mean, not to be like gross, but I don't really know how, and that will occlude their nair. You have to like go in and like dig it out. It's like a plug, okay? So 4 to 6 liters per minute with a nasal cannula, no matter what, no ifs, ands, or buts, gets a bubble humidifier. Or if the patient says, my nose is bleeding and it hurts really, really bad, and they're only on 3 liters per minute, can we still give them a bubble humidifier? Yes. Okay? Sound good? So bubble humidifier, the relative humidity of that is about 30%. What is the only piece of equipment that we can use with a bubble humidifier?
Nasal cannula.
Nasal cannula, okay? What liter flow is this always hooked up to the nasal cannula, always hooked up to a butter? I must be hungry. A bubble humidifier. 4 to 6 liters per minute. Or if the patient asks or complains of dryness and soreness from the oxygen therapy. I don't even care if I had 1 liter per minute running to my nose, it would need some humidification because my sinuses are an absolute disaster
And
phase.
hospitals are dry anyway.
Very
When
dry.
you work a 12-hour shift in a hospital and you leave, your nose will be dry.
Yes.
So imagine being in that dry environment plus having medical gas shooting up your nose that you're not used to. Very
Yikes.
dry.
That's a lot, right? So does the bubble humidifier make sense?
Yes.
You may only see this during your checkoff. Is this a bubble humidifier?
Yes.
Yes, it's just a non-disposable one that you can clean, but everything else operates the same. 30% relative humidity about. We can only run a nasal cannula off of it, 4 to 6 liters per minute always, or if they experience dryness. Make sense? Since we're refilling this, what goes inside of here? Sterile water. In the home care, you can use distilled water or boiled water as well. In the hospital ones, when this is empty or there's a line that it'll say like replace, you just throw it away. But they are also filled with sterile water. Nothing else goes inside of them. Okay?
What'll happen if you use tap water?
Oh, it degrades the whole system. Yeah.
Also,
Yep.
tap water
And it
isn't
has a
always
lot of-
necessarily treated properly.
Yeah.
Shooting untreated or improperly treated tap water up your nose can give you like that green eating amoeba you read about in the news. Water, if there's been a storm and there was stormwater runoff and the water's improperly treated, organisms and fungus and all kinds of crazy things.
So like cabin fever, just in your nose.
Like what?
Like the movie can't be.
Yeah.
Saying you know.
Well, plus they put bleach in it. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff that they put into water to treat it.
Yeah,
So
there's never
Does
tap
that mean
water
people
that has
don't
not
do
been
it?
boiled.
Oh, yeah.
no, my husband, my dad, when he was on oxygen, did it all the time.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, please stop, please.
But that's a great
Right.
opportunity to educate your patient.
Yeah.
As you're giving them a treatment or you're assessing them, you're asking them questions about what they do at home, what they use at home, and that's a great time to re-educate the patient. You know, because we certainly hear that every shift, some wild things. CPAPs, they love to put tap water in CPAPs.
Yes, you should not. Sound good?
It's a no.
All right, everyone ready for your next one? Dun, 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 dun.